Hello, everyone. Hi. We are here this evening and we are talking about a great topic. Today's topic, this chair's kind of low. Um, Today's topic is talking about raising emotionally healthy children in a digital world. I've been noticing lately that many of my young people that's been coming in, they are so connected to their cell phones, online video games, and they're like up all night. Like I have a couple of young people that they're up all night playing video games and doing all these things. And I'm like, we got to work on this, parents. And so, although although I work with a lot of teenagers, I was like, today I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that we can do to better help our children um, be more like efficient, be better at like expressing themselves, but also understanding how the technology that they're constantly on can really impact them mentally, emotionally, physically, all these things that really happens when a child is on like social media all the time and doing all these things that and not really like being out and outside and playing and doing all the things that they really do need to do in order to grow developmentally, emotionally, and physically. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about like how can we do these things, like what's some of the questions that we can ask our children, how we can engage them more, and all those, all that. And so I wanted to just make sure that I help you guys today. So again, welcome to Healing Unlock and Healing Unlock CT, where we are talking about stories, real calming stories, where we can really express what's going on with us, things that we've gone through, things that we need to get better at, but also just to have a dialogue. So tonight's episode is 25, y'all. We are on episode 25. Thank you all who have been coming every Monday watching. I think I only had to cancel one show so far, and I am super excited to not have cancel more. But hey, I am looking to do some pre-recorded shows because I have a couple of people that I want to do like some interviews with, and Mondays are not good for them. So there might be some days where I have to do pre-recorded shows. So I hope that you guys would still check in on a Monday and still watch it, but it will not be live. So I just wanted to, put that out there because I really want a couple of people to participate. And in order for them to participate, it's going to have to be on a different day. So welcome. Come on in. So really, I want you guys to just know that your child doesn't need screen time. They need emotional connection. And that is so important. Sometimes we want to just give our kids a tablet or let them play a video game or whatever. But y'all, we need to be encouraging and interacting with our children so that they can start learning. Like, yes, it's great to have social media, it's great to have tablets and computers and learn how to do certain things in the tech world, but we need to make sure our children are socially connected and emotionally connected. So as a parent of two young women, I would like to say that I am grateful that both of my daughters did not grow up in the age where they were just connected to their devices and social media and wanted to do everything through the mm, the technology world. I messed that up, y'all. Anyway, forgive me. So, technology right now, it's raising our children. We know that it's raising our children, but it's also shaping how we think. Right? We know that the more we give to our children, and the more they're like learning from these technological spaces, the more it's shaping their thought process. Right? It's shaping how they think, how they feel, how they connect, how they communicate, how they see themselves, because they're constantly watching something and they're constantly wanting to be like the next best thing, right? And that next best thing can be models, it can be like the next gamer, it can be all types of things. And we have to make sure that we are protecting our children. We are protecting them from all that's there. So, as parents, our greatest responsibility isn't just managing screens, it's protecting the emotional connection that helps children thrive. I don't know about y'all, but I love a child that can connect verbally, that's able to process, that's able to express how they feel and what they want. And that makes me excited when a child can tell you that they don't like something and actually explain it to you. Not only feel like, well, I heard this on the news, or I heard this on Google, or I saw this on YouTube, but actually maybe even refer to a book or a comic book strip. Like, I don't care what it is. I just want children to stop always worrying about what the internet wants them to do. We have to understand that we should be managing their screen time, not just to tell them what to do, but really engage with them, connect with them, help them grow, spend that time with them. And that is so important. So, children today are growing up in a world where likes, followers, and comments are pretty much based on they look at it as like it's their self-worth, right? I want to get all the likes, I'm gonna get all the followers, I'm gonna have people comment, and that makes me feel good because I'm getting attention. So now our children are posting anything just so they can get those things, right? And we don't even pay attention sometimes, right? Sometimes we just allow them to do their thing and we think, oh, they're occupied, but we don't really pay attention to the fact that, yeah, they may be occupied, but who is occupying them and what are they actually learning, right? Research has linked social media use with increased anxiety, depression, poor sleep patterns, lower self esteem, fear of missing out, what they call FOMO. I found that out, y'all. I'm gonna tell y'all right now. I had no idea. I was working with some young people, and they kept saying FOMO, and I was like, "What are y'all talking about?" Like it reminded me of FUBU, and I'm like, "What is FOMO?" So I figured that out. So I feel good. But anyway, fear of missing out, which is FOMO, and then cyberbullying. And instead of us asking like what's going on, we'll ask questions like how much time do they spend online. Like, instead of us trying to figure out what's going on with them outside of social media, we do need to ask them like how much time are they spending online, because I've noticed that a lot of the kids that come into my office, they have high anxiety, they're high on the depressive state. Some of them just don't even know how to connect with their peers, right? So we need to figure out how much time our children are spending on social media and online. We also need to ask, how are they feeling when they're not on social media or online, or how they feel after they get off. These are important questions, because when a child and when you can talk to your child and ask them, okay, so you just spent 2 hours online, how are you feeling? They should be able to express that. If they can't tell you, oh, I feel a little bit off, like I'm tired or I'm excited, or, my mind won't go off, or, like I saw this and it made me this and that. If they can't really explain that, that means they're spending too much time on social media. They're spending too much time online. So I would definitely say, like, if your child cannot explain to you how they feel once they get offline, then we need to do some work. More than likely, they're doing too much online. We need to really have these questions that we ask ourselves. So I'm like, you should be able to ask yourself, have you ever noticed your child or my child becoming quiet, frustrated, or withdrawn after spending time on TikTok or Instagram? Right? That's a good question, because sometimes we don't even realize that our children are changing, not because of what we're doing in the house, but because of what they're seeing on Instagram, what's happening on Facebook, TikTok. All these things are causing them to have an adverse effect on their communication and processing, right? The emotional change is often more important than the screen time itself. So yes, sometimes people say, well, I don't let my children watch or use their tablets during the week, right? And that's perfect. And I applaud parents who say that and do that. But when the weekend comes, or a holiday or whatever, how much time are they spending? Because even if they're not spending any time Monday through Friday, if they're spending most of their 48 hours on the weekend watching TikTok, Instagram, and all the other things, you want to pay attention to their mood, how they change, attitude, frustration, unable to process, constantly highly emotional. We want to pay attention to those things, because you don't know what's going on. They can be being so cyber bullied, right? They can be so stuck on or fixated on looking like something, or they feel like, because I don't have the right clothes or the right jewelry, or, I don't have this or that, now they're not good enough. So now, after they get off of watching all this beautiful stuff on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, right? It's like now they're sad, or they're sitting in their rooms more, right? And we have to pay attention to that, because if not, we will end up with more children that are high anxiety or high depression, not sleeping, right? Like we as adults even go into like scrolling, right? We can scroll. And I'm going to tell you right now, we can fall into this as well. But I want you guys to understand that it's important for us to rear our children so they can be healthy. Now, we want to have unhealthy boundaries with online stuff. That's us. But our children should have healthy boundaries, and they should be able to have or build emotional connection, right? Screen limits alone are not enough to pretty much like say we can spend all this time together, or we can say like let's see. Some parents would say, if I take the phone away, it'll solve the problem. That's not always true. It's not always necessary. A child may stop using the device, but still would feel kind of like lonely, anxious, rejected, pressured, right? The goal isn't simply controlling technology. The goal is helping children to process what they experience online. So if they're experiencing something online, we as parents have to ask them about it. We have to make sure that we're asking the right questions, right? So you might want to say, screen time isn't your enemy, but let's just disconnect for a little bit, right? Let's just disconnect for a little bit. Let's do something fun. Let's read a book. I'm not taking the phone away for a punishment. I'm taking it away because I think that it's time to just kind of breathe and kind of get back to reality, because everything on the screen isn't always reality. Being able to have those conversations with your children without them feeling like you're taking their phones or their devices away as punishment will help them understand that I need to give myself a break from online streaming, right? And what that's going to do is help them understand that they're not in trouble by taking a break, and it's okay to take a break and do something more that's going to increase their thinking and different things like that, right? So we want to make sure that when we do like take the phones and things like that, we're not just taking the phones and saying this is a punishment, but also just letting them know like we are taking this just so we can disconnect for a little bit and do something that's different, right? We want to build trust instead of control when we're talking with our children about screen time and healthy habits amongst the screen time. And so, children are most likely to tell like the parents about different things if they feel like they can trust their parent or their parent trusts them, and it's not that their parents are trying to control them, right? So it's very, very important that you don't just like use things to say, oh well, you wouldn't have done this if that didn't happen, or you spend too much time, or you don't clean up your room because of this. Like when you start saying those types of things to your children, they're definitely not going to tell you what they're seeing on their online devices, because they're scared about you already talking crap to them about how something is making them. And so it's so important that you build trust with your child or your children, and help them understand that you want them to have time, but you also want them to understand when something is dangerous and when they need to come and talk to you, right? Um, so that's very, very important. Let's see. So for example, instead of saying, give me your phone, you can say, can you help me understand what happened on this? Like show them like if they talk about a reel or something, ask instead of just like, give me your phone, you don't need to watch this. You can say, tell me what you saw, right? Have a dialogue, make them feel like you want to hear, so then they can come and show you things. And that's an opportunity of teaching as well, right? So you want to be curious about what they're watching and why they're watching it, and why it was so important for them to share it, or so important for them to rewatch it, or do what was in the reel or whatever, right? Because one of the things that I know as a mom, and I can admit, sometimes we get a little bit extra and we give me that phone, you don't need to watch it, and it's like, but why? Well, we want our parent to have spoken to us that way. And so we want to make sure that we're not just being extra when we're trying to help our kids have healthier relationships with their online streaming their own online devices, right? So when we think about being pressured, rejected, anxious, or lonely, sometimes our children are feeling that way in their home because the parent isn't helping them build trust with each other. It's more so, if you do this, this is going to happen. If you don't do this, this is going to happen. And we need to really build curiosity with our children. We need to show them that we're curious about what they're doing and how they're doing it, and how they're learning, and what they need from us. Because if not, then they will go back into feeling lonely, which goes into depression, anxiety, and different things like that, right? When they won't when the children know they're not going to be immediately punished for watching or doing something that they've seen online, they're gonna be happier to come to you and say, mom or dad, or I did this, and I I don't know what to do, right? We want to like create immunity moments. So like when certain things happen, we want to be able to our kids to come to us and say stuff like, okay, I just did this, blah blah blah. Immunity moments mean giving your child an opportunity to tell you what they did without getting in trouble, right? And then allowing them to have a moment to learn from what they did instead of punishing them. That's an immunity moment, right? Um, And it's just like if you tell your child who's just got their license, I'd rather you call me if you're out drinking than getting in the car and trying to drive home. Or I'd rather you call me instead of, you know, doing something that you're going to regret. It's kind of like giving them the option to be honest with you without them getting into trouble. Celebrate when they say they did something or they saw something. Don't just be like, oh, that's good for you. No, really celebrate. I really appreciate you coming to me and saying that you saw this, or saying that somebody did this to you while you were online. Because the more you teach them that you're going to be there and you're their safe space, the more they're going to trust you and they're going to disclose more things to you. Teaching emotional intelligence is also important. Children need emotional vocabulary. So instead of only asking, how was school? We can try asking things like, what made you smile today? What frustrated you today? What did anyone make you feel left out? Did you make someone feel included today? And what was the hardest moment today? These questions are important because I'm going to tell y'all right now, our children are looking for these answers. They're looking for the answers, but they're also looking for people to check on them. So many of our children are going on to online sites so they can feel included. They're building relationships with people all the way across the world because people are checking on them. And so when you are able to ask your children these questions, these children are now more willing to come and talk to you than find people online that might be dangerous, right? So when you can be emotionally connected to your child, and although they have these devices, and sometimes we can't get the devices from them. Now I think all the schools have devices. So, but we still need to have these conversations. So being able to ask those simple questions: what made you smile today? What frustrated you today? Did anyone make you feel left out today? Did you make someone feel included today? And what was the hardest moment today? These are just open ended questions that you can ask your child that will help them stay more focused with having one to one conversations than going online, finding friends and different things, and then getting themselves in trouble. So, we want to make sure that we're anchoring our children in these types of things so that they are able to reflect better and be most emotionally attached and more emotionally intelligent when it comes to, like, just saying, how was your day today, right? We also want to make sure that um, you if you have young kids, or like teenagers or middle schoolers, you can do an emotional chart, right? Emotional menu somewhere in your home. And you might even want to put like something, it might be like a dry erase or something like that if you have small kids. And you can just put like different smiley faces, different emotional cues, and they can like check off those things. And so when you get home, they might do it already, and then you can go in there and have a conversation with them. But put it somewhere that they feel safe enough to just put their emotional feelings or whatever on there. Model it yourself. Say things out loud how you feel after you're online all day, being on your computer all day, your tablets, scrolling through online. Like, have open conversations about things that you might have seen online, and hopefully your children will see that. And then the more that they hear you talk about the displeasure that you've had, or all the things that you've gone through, maybe they'll want to have a conversation with you. um, you can also let your children know, like, you're fine with what they're watching. However, you just want to always keep the communication very open, because again, technology isn't going anywhere. It's just getting worse and worse, or more advanced. So our children are learning things more, but we as adults have to make sure that we keep it safe for them and healthy for them. We want to also create healthy family conversations. Each day, you should have at least 10 to 15 minutes of healthy conversations with your children. That means you don't have any access to your phones and different things, and they don't have any access to their phones, right? Dinner without phones, car rides without phones, weekly family check-ins without phones. Like, we don't need to have all this stuff. We don't need to have technology in our hand all the time, right? And sometimes we wake up with our phone, we go to sleep with our phone, we're eating with our phone. But if you could take 10 to 15 minutes a day to just sit without any devices, I'm telling y'all right now, your children will open up more. They will feel more inclusive. They will want to help you more. You just have to practice, and you have to show them that it's okay not to have their devices. Because many of us, like myself, I always have my device, right? And if I don't have my device, I have my computer. I have something in my hand where I'm working on something. And so right now, if I had smaller children or teenagers, I probably would not be the best model. So even when I was doing a little bit research for this podcast tonight, I started thinking about how I can be a better influence to my young people, my great nieces, my nieces and nephews. And I'm like, okay, well, when they come around, I can put my phone away and just give them my undivided attention. Get a coloring book, read a book with them, do something outside, ride the bike, do something. But we have to get better with spending that one-to-one time without our devices, without our computers, so that we can make a difference within our children, right? We can also have designated no phone zones, right? So in the house, right? So if you come into the family room, you can't bring your phone. Like, these are just fun things that you can do to solidify kind of like having emotional intelligence, having conversation, getting everybody off their devices and actually spending that time together, right? Um, no earbuds, because sometimes the phone might be in the bedroom, but they got on earbuds, right? Because these kids are smart. We know these kids are smart. So, you have these rules in the home and different things that you do. If you're going to someone's house for the first time, you don't need to bring your device. Leave it in the car. These are things that we can do to make sure that our children are social and emotional, with each other, and building relationships not only with us but people outside of the home. Now, this is one thing that I'm really big with, and I talk to parents about when we need to take the phones at night. We should, if you don't know, your brain needs about an hour to an hour and a half time to relax from being on devices, right? Especially with the blue light and the cell phones and the computers. Like, we really need that time for our brain to kind of relax. If you ever go to sleep, or if you ever get ready for bed and you realize your brain is constantly going, start thinking about, when's the last time you scrolled on your phone? When's the last time you opened up a text message? Because that's really going to help you understand that you need to have no phone within an hour to an hour and a half before you go to bed. Read the Bible, read a book, talk to your significant other, talk to your children, but do not be on your phone or devices prior to bed. And that's going to also help our children. Even video games, we need to be careful about how long before they fall asleep that they have access to cell phones, tablets, video games, computers, any of that. Why? Because if not, you can be going to bed and they'll still be up, their brains will still be going, and then in the morning they're exhausted. And a lot of people don't do that. They will allow their kids to have all access and then wonder why they like zombies in the morning, because they're not sleeping. So I always say, if your bedtime is at 9 o'clock, those phones should be in the parents' room by 7, and they should be doing something that's productive, and something that helps them wind down. Maybe go take a nice bath, read a book, anything that is going to help their brain, their mind shut down for the night. Because even now the cell phones have this thing on there. It says, getting ready for bed. It shuts the phone down, right? We need to do that more with our children. And a lot of parents, I've noticed that, especially in the summertime, they're not taking their kids' phone on the weekend. They're not taking it because they're like, oh, well, she said or he said. I don't care what they say because they come in here and they're like, oh, I was on the phone till 2 o'clock. I was scrolling. I saw this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, and I just had a conversation with their parents, right? And I can't say nothing because that's our session. But it's like, dang, like if you guys are not going to listen to like the suggestions, like what are we complaining about? You can't complain that they're late for school. You can't complain that they're not doing what they're supposed to because they can't concentrate. So take the phones at a decent time so that you can relax, your child can relax, and do something that is more stimulating. Like again, reading a book before bed is the healthy stimulation that we all need before going to sleep, right? Not a cell phone, not a tablet, not a video game, not a computer. We should not be doing these things before bed. Lower the bar for good conversations. You don't need to break through, you don't need a breakthrough every night. Showing up consistently without advice in your hand is the whole point. So even when you go in to take your child's phone or tell them, hey, we got to put the phone away, make sure you don't have your phone, right? You want to show your children that you're doing the same thing that they're doing to get ready for bed. That is part of emotional intelligence. Don't continue to do something that you don't want someone else not to do. Because if that's the case, then you're not practicing emotional intelligence. You're just practicing what's the word? I just lost my train of thought. You're contradicting yourself, and we don't want to do that. And then we also want to understand that the difference between monitoring and mentoring. Many parents monitor devices, right? Fewer mentor children through the digital world. Monitoring asks, what are you doing online? Mentoring asks, how is your online life affecting your heart, your confidence, your relationships? And that is really where that emotional intelligence happens. When you're able to ask these questions, that is where your emotional intelligence will kind of come in, right? Teaching healthy boundaries, help your children understand not every message deserves an immediate response. I can honestly say, like, if somebody texts me, I'm going to text them right back, unless I don't have my phone. And that's the problem because I shouldn't have my phone all the time. So I know I got to work on that, right? But as a parent, if I have young people in my home, I need to monitor, I need to mentor that, to let them know, like, hey, we don't always need our cell phones in our hand. If something is important, they will call back or they'll let us know, but we don't always have to have it. They don't need anyone's approval. We don't need an approval from everybody. So if you post something, if somebody don't like it, it's okay. Let your children know that. They don't have to compare their lives to someone else's highlight reel, right? We need to make sure our children understand that just because somebody's reel has gotten all this attention doesn't mean anything. Just because you only got 3 or 4 views, that means nothing. But because more than likely somebody still saw it. And that's all that matters. You're posting it because you want to post it, not you're looking for attention. And if you teach your child that your social media is for you and it's not always just to grab attention, they will learn to accept the fact that my social media, I'm going to put what I want to put on there. I'm going to do what I want because I want to get information out there. I want to help somebody, or I just want to show off my nice outfit, right? It's okay to take breaks from social media. One of the things I try to do is take a month off every quarter on social media. It has been very hard for me, but I do try to do that. I do have an assistant that will post for me. Most of the time, he's posting everything for me, but our kids don't have that. However, I only do it because of the business. But if we can practice with our children and mentor, hey, on the month of April, we're going to have no social media, and do it together as a family. That really is going to help our children understand that my parents are doing this with us, or we don't always need that. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you detox, because that's what I call it, detoxing from social media, that when those 30 days is over, when you think about all the stuff that you've gotten done, your children will be happy for you, or they will be happy with you. And You can do so much, and children can do so much without social media. They'll go out, ride their bikes more, they'll play, they'll help you in the yard, they'll clean, because their brain is detoxing from all of that serotonin and all that stuff that's going into their system. And we need to help them detox. We need to help them detox. All right. Warning signs parents should watch for. Encourage. We want to encourage others and myself and you to make sure that if your child becomes unusually withdrawn, irritable after using social media, secretive, unable to stop checking their phone, losing interest in hobbies, struggling to sleep, or constantly comparing themselves, like I said earlier, you want to pay attention to that. Because if your child starts doing that, they really have an issue going on. But I'm telling you right now, if you kind of do some of the things that we talked about earlier, you will be able to catch those things before they become a problem. Children who start to withdraw is like one of the biggest examples of them either being bullied or becoming depressed or having high anxiety. They're not wanting to do things, always want to be in their room. Maybe they don't even want to shower. Like, these things happen when they're just spending too much time on social media. And we don't always realize that, because we're like, oh, well, they're in the house, they're not in trouble. There's so much going on outside. But when your child is stuck behind a camera all day or a screen, it's like you don't know what they're doing. And you have to pay attention to what your children are out here doing, because if you don't, then you're going to miss out on the signs. Because I know parents come in, oh, I've never seen them that way. But were you really paying attention? Were you really paying attention to the changes within your child, right? And that is what you really do need to pay attention to, the changes in your child. So that 10 to 15 minute check in, the having the no cell phone zone or no electronic zone in your home, that's going to be great. Asking those questions after school instead of asking like those regular, oh, how was your day? And just like the kids like, oh, it's good. No, you really do need to dig a little deeper within your children these days, because I'm gonna tell you right now, social media and they have like all this online stuff. Like, our children are very much in danger with all the things that they are being exposed to. I realize that a lot of our children really just don't know how to think for themselves. A lot of the AI stuff, a lot of the children are picking up on that, and they're learning how to use it, and like they're having things think for themselves. I've had parents come in here and tell me that they've been going on chat gpt to learn like how to deal with depression, anxiety. That stuff is dangerous, and if we're not paying attention and asking the right questions, our children can really start learning how to self-medicate through online apps and different things like that, right? There is a difference between connection and comparison, right? We need to make sure that we help um, our kids understand that. Like, we need to help them understand that you can have a connection with someone, but you don't have to compare yourself with someone. When you look at their page, they don't have to, they can feel inspired, but if you feel less than, then it might be a problem. And the parent needs to be able to talk to their kid and make sure they understand. Like, if you look at somebody's page and instead of you feeling inspired or you liking it, you start feeling bad about yourself, you know, we have to figure out if this is a good person to follow. And then actually have some more conversations with your children about their own self-esteem and different things like that. Teach your children that unfollowing, muting, or taking breaks is not rudeness. It is self-care. So they should practice it, right? Also, let your kids know creating a response time rule. So Messages do not require immediate replies, like I said earlier. Establish family norms that we will respond when we're ready, right? Not when the notification demands it. This teaches children that their time and attention are valuable. Also, this is like a little pet peeve of mine, and I noticed that a lot of young people do. I can't stand people who have cell phones and they have hundreds of messages like in the red little circle, especially if they have an iPhone. I'm like, what is going on? So basically, children are just, they're really not responding. And it, because how is it that it's still red? So that right there, although it's something that you can teach them, I really don't think that these young people be responding to messages anyway. Talk about the highlights of the reel directly. When your child sees a perfect vacation or perfect body or perfect home, say, you know what? I agree that there's a whole lot of messy life behind that photo that didn't make the grid. Like basically letting them know, like, just because it looks glamorous doesn't mean that there's not negative things going on behind there, right? Because if you really think about some of the things that are posted on social media, and then you hear these negative things about these relationships that these children and people have thought it was so great, and then somebody's dead or somebody went to jail or somebody went bankrupt. We want to make sure that we help our children understand that not everything that they see on social media is real, right? Warning signs parents should watch for. We already went through that. I would like to give a scripture around the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. That is Psalm 34 and 18. So, as parents and caregivers, we are called to be close, not helicopters, close. Present enough notice, and so instead of being like a helicopter parent, give enough notice to let your child know, like, I'm here, but I'm not gonna like be too demanding on you. Let's see, what else do we need to talk about? Trying to read my notes here. So I would also like to share a few books that I think is very important if you want to have more information about helping our children have healthier time with screens. The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. I think it's on smartphones and the mental health crisis in children. You can get that. On Untangled, that's also another good book. Dr. Lisa Dumore, Understanding Adolescent Girls. The Whole Brain Child by Dr. Daniel Siegel and Tina Payne Bryson. That's actually another book that's really good. And for those who don't like reading like I do, the Audible is really good. You can get Audible books. Permission to Feel by Dr. Mark Brackett. That's on emotional literacy. That's a good book. Then you can also call the crisis line, like 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. And then in Connecticut, you can call on me. Let's Talk About It Counseling Services, LLC. So these are some of the things that I thought was important to talk about, just because there has been so many young people dealing with this screen time pandemic, I call it, because that's really what it is. It's a pandemic of individuals spending so much time on screens that they really don't know who they are. They don't know what's real. They don't know what's fake. Anxiety has gone through the roof. Like, I can't tell you how many children have been diagnosed with anxiety or depression over the last 10 years alone, just because of the amount of screen time they have. We have to do better, guys. I really hope that this got something, you got something from this one tonight, because it's so important that we really pay attention to what our children are doing when they're not in front of us, but also what they're doing on their screens. So really ask the questions. You don't have to be invasive to ask questions. Make it more, be like more of a curious question. Sit with them, watch some reels with them, see what they're looking at. We need to do better with that. I think we've gotten so quick with just letting our kids go off and doing whatever. Teaching our children how to have conversations with others, right? Having dialogue with your child on a daily basis will help them learn how to talk to people outside of the home. The more you have face to face, your children will learn how to speak to people in social spaces. When it comes to what task you are giving your children, like to Google things or what they're doing for school, you still want to be near them so that you can mentor them doing the right things. So just be careful with that. Again, take your child's devices away earlier, like an hour to an hour and a half prior to bedtime, and really do something that can help bring down the amount of like energy processing in their brains before going to sleep. Remember that playing outside will always be better than being on a screen. Go for a walk, go to the park, go hiking, do something that does not require screen time. It is so much better. You will see like a boost, and even in your children's grades, the more you keep them off of the screen time and do things that, like actually reading a book, actually playing in dirt, riding a bike, teaching them how to mow the lawn, teaching them how to plant a plant, right? Teaching them how to maybe paint, doing things that's going to get them excited, get their brains excited about doing hands-on things and not just your screen time. That is going to be very, very important for your children. You also might want to get, if you look on this side of me, there's a feelings wheel. You can order that on Amazon. You can even keep that in your home, because sometimes we don't always know some of the feelings that we have even as adults. But if you keep something like that in your house, you can ask your child, how you feeling today, and they can actually pick that up and find a word that connects, but they can also find other words that also connect with how they feel. That is very helpful as well, because a lot of times our children will go online looking for how they feel, rather it's from listening to a YouTube or watching a reel, and they will put that on them, and it's not really what they feel. It's just it connects with them, right? But if you get a feelings wheel and you can help them learn how to look at it and read through it, they will then begin to express themselves better, right? Also, affirmations are really great. Teaching your child how to affirm themselves on a daily basis will help them not be so worried about what someone is saying online or what someone is doing online, because they're going to believe and they're going to know in their own heart that they are worthy. And so when, they get online and they see something, they might think it's cute, but they also will know that they're good, and that they're loved and that they're appreciated, and they don't need those likes and comments to make them feel important or seen, right? So when we teach our children affirmations and we speak them, and it's kind of like giving them encouragement, it's going to be a great thing. And the last thing I will say is, don't smother your children when it comes to what they're doing on the internet, what they're doing on their screen. Really hone in with them and give them their space, but also give them limits, give them your expectations, and reiterate those expectations, give them some privacy, but, don't give them all the rope to hang themselves. If you notice something, call them out on it. Just say, hey, I noticed you did this, blah, blah. We got to be careful not to be too hard, but we also got to make sure that we don't keep it open too wide. But that is all I have. I hope that you guys enjoyed this session. I think that it was very important for me to talk about this today, because of just all the that I'm hearing when I have my teenagers come in, and I'm like, I just need these parents to understand that they have to talk to their babies more. You know, I'm not saying we got to spend every minute with our child or our children, but just being able to have conversations with them and keeping the line of communication open, and just helping them understand that you don't need screen time to make you feel good. You know, somebody is right here that you can always talk to. And teaching them healthy boundaries is going to be really great as they grow and they develop. So it's your girl, Dr. Tasha Rose, your transparent sister in women's healing. And I want you to know that I love you and God loves you too. Peace.